Two factions in Minecraft have been at odds with each other since 2016, unable to agree on the direction of where the game was heading and how PvP should be implemented. In February of 2016, Minecraft's most controversial update would drop, the Combat Update, sparking endless debates and arguments on many of Minecraft's forums. People were divided. Some would love it for the increase in depth and richness it gave to the combat system. Other people, however, fervently believed that this was proof that Minecraft had strayed too far from its simpler combat mechanics. As time has passed, we have grown, and so too has Minecraft. So has 1.9 Plus stood the test of time as one of Minecraft's best changes, or was it a scar on Minecraft's legacy? Many people hold Minecraft near and dear to our hearts, and it touches me to think that so many new people are going to get to experience the game that filled my childhood with so much joy. However, the game that they will be playing and the game that I have played are so much different than we can even realize, and I believe that's for the better. Progress and growth is something that any game hoping to keep some form of longevity needs, but most importantly is inclusion and variability. However, many have questioned if Minecraft is heading in the right direction. I believe that is the wrong question when it comes to Minecraft's PvP system. Although things have become more complex, it allows for a higher degree of freedom and individuality. It allows for you to find what truly suits you, and I love it for that. For me, this project is both a nostalgia trip, recording the history and changes of PvP, and also an appeal that hopes to get some people to give modern versions another chance, to see that these changes are for the better, and that this is progress. On December 20th, 2010, an indie game designer known as Notch burst onto the scene with a revolutionary game unlike anything that was available at the time. Minecraft, a procedurally generated open-world sandbox game, allowed players to break and place blocks to construct various structures. In its alpha stage, Minecraft lacked many features that would later become appreciated, such as beds, elytras, ender pearls, totems, and stackable food. Nevertheless, it quickly became a cult classic, firmly ingraining itself in the public sight. The combat system was initially rudimentary. Players crafted a sword and attacked entities by simply left-clicking. In just 1 month, multiplayer servers were introduced in alpha version 1.0.15, giving birth to Minecraft PvP. PvP in early versions of Minecraft, including alpha and early beta, differed slightly from the well-known 1.8.9 PvP that many players are familiar with today. In these versions, click speed was limited due to the requirement to wait for the attack animation to finish before initiating another click. Regardless of this, much of the player base would continue to click as fast as they possibly can in order to develop good habits for when they need to please women. As a result, a build meta quickly emerged as the dominant strategy, as both did not require charge animations and allowed for greater freedom of movement. However, this early stage of PvP did not last long. Over time, Minecraft's PvP system underwent significant development throughout a series of updates, including Beta 1.7, 1.8, and the official release 1.0.0. Players gradually adapted to the numerous changes introduced in Beta 1.7, which removed cooldowns between sword swings, while Beta 1.8 introduced critical hits, blocking, a bow animation, sprinting, and hunger mechanics. In the public release of version 1.0.0, Mojang added potion effects and the ability to enchant items, which both significantly impacted the combat dynamics. Despite the large impact, the updates would remain uncontroversial, with Minecraft's combat remaining relatively unchanged until version 1.9.0. As Minecraft became more and more popular, servers such as Hypixel Mineplex, Mineplex by the way, there goes my childhood, would start to grow, allowing 1.8.9 PvP to be further practiced. New game modes such as UHC, Blitz, Duels, Bed Wars, and Sky Wars all forced players to improve on their skills. No longer was combat just a contest of aim, now there were new tactics involved, such as momentum control, strafing, and knockback manipulation. All of which would be seen in servers like Hypixel and Mineplex's PvP-based minigames. Bridge Duels is a minigame on Hypixel where you and your opponent spawn on two different islands. The goal is to get across the bridge and score on your opponent's goal. Because there was a large void on either side of the bridge, players had to master knockback as well as momentum control in order to win. Sumo Duels is yet another example of a minigame that helped emphasize mastery over certain techniques. Because getting hit and comboed was such a large issue in sumos, players had to master strafing in order to avoid taking damage in the first place. Strafing was the most widely used mechanic, but also the most difficult to master. Strafing involves the use of sprinting side to side in order to make it harder for your opponent to track you. However, with all of this, combat just looked the same. Work on CPS, work on tracking, work on strafing, work on combos, work on S-tapping, and work on W-tapping and block hitting. Once the system had settled, combat was stagnant, with the only real variation coming with how often you used your bow or fishing rod. On February 29, 2016, Minecraft released an update that would fracture the PvP community. With the release of Minecraft 1.9, the entire combat system that had existed for years had changed. PvP from 1.8.9 had been revamped as something entirely new. Firstly, a bar was added underneath your crosshair, requiring you to wait for it to fill up before you could attack again. Axes were reworked to deal more damage than swords per hit at the expense of having to wait for a longer cooldown, lowering its overall DPS. Shields were added to replace a useless block function that swords had had, allowing for you to completely block incoming damage to your front. It's hard to say with words how much of a change the attack cooldown initially felt like. Even though 1.8.9 players still had to wait half a second in order for each iframe to end, they were still able to swing at their heart's content, but now things were different. Swords took 625 milliseconds to recover, forcing the player base to wait an extra 125 milliseconds or be punished with greatly lowered attack damage. Although the influence of CPS in 1.8.9 is largely an overstated myth, I do understand that many of the things in 1.9 Plus could be added with no change to the combat system. An example of this would be weapons like tridents and crossbows, which don't technically require a cooldown bar to be added, which is shown in the Bedrock edition. It is undeniable that this content pairs far better with 1.9 system than it does with 1.8.9's. Trident's medium cooldown time and damage allow it to play a hybrid role between a sword and an axe, as well as being a good option for both ranged attacks and or for mobility. Crossbows also pair well, since they offer an interesting way around shields, since they have the option to be paired with the piercing enchantment, which allows them to go right through shields. With weapon cooldowns being added, weapons are allowed to fill different niches. Axes are used for high burst damage, swords are used for prolonged combat with their high DPS, and tridents being able to fill multiple roles depending on its enchants. Without the addition of weapon cooldowns, variation is removed, and players with different playstyles and different preferences aren't allowed to feel which niche fits them best. Shields work because it requires you to switch to an axe in order to disable it, which leaves you vulnerable while you're waiting for the 1.25 seconds for the axe to recharge. Without the introduction of weapon cooldowns, there is no room for variation and no room for these trade-offs. There is only the question of which weapon has the higher number of damage. Variation and individuality are two keys that make this game timeless. The release of Minecraft's combat update matured the game's PvP system, introducing several changes that had a lasting impact on the community, sparking intense debates among some players. Some embraced the update for its increased depth and complexity. However, in the years since, version 1.9 Plus has undoubtedly stood the test of time as a transformative change in Minecraft's combat. The introduction of attack cooldowns, shields, and reworked weapons like axes brought a new layer in strategy and tactical decision making to PvP and allowed for greater variation and individuality in playstyles, opening up new opportunities for tactics. The combat system in 1.8.9 had reached a point of stagnation, and while it provided a fast-paced experience, it lacked the depth richness that version 1.9 Plus had. Minecraft is a game that encourages freedom and choice. Players have the option to stick with version 1.8.9 and enjoy the more simplistic combat mechanics. Minecraft's greatest strength is allowing players to create their own unique experiences, whether one chooses to embrace newer combat systems or stick with older versions. Both are part of the freedom that Minecraft offers. The impact of the combat update goes beyond this debate between 1.9 and 1.8.9. It opened up possibilities for future updates. Minecraft's combat system should not be set in stone. The legacy of the combat update is the variability and freedom of Minecraft, a freedom that I hope Microsoft won't overlook.
Microsoft, I know that Mojang and you have been deliberating over changing the combat system again, adding in new mechanics. I personally believe that such a change would be a welcome one, but you always need to keep in mind that choices are what make games worth playing. Trade-offs are part of the fun of games. That's what makes games like TF2 so timeless. If you give people the ability to customize their loadouts, to experiment, to play, and to change things all over again, I promise you, people will come back time and time again. Thank you, Mojang, for giving me the freedom to express myself in this game, for taking up my summers and allowing me to build entire cities, for giving me a community I'm proud to be a part of. And most of all, thank you for bringing together all the friends I've made through this game.